Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2026 Esports World Cup. I am here in Paris, France. I've also just gotten done commentating the semifinals, both of them. And also today we had the quarters. If you watched it live and you're still here, well, appreciate it. We all know we like to pile in for these GothamChess recaps. If you haven't watched, I'm not going to spoil anything. Magnus Carlsen, we have Nihal Sarin, we have Alireza Firouzja, we have Hans Niemann, Nojibek Abdusattorov, Denis Lazavik, Hikaru, Nakamura, Arjun, Erigaisi. Just really a stellar field of 8 players, quarterfinals, semifinals, and then the finals will be, of course, tomorrow. It's been a fascinating week for your boy. Today they dropped a lie detector video where Magnus and Hikaru talked about old Gotham in great detail. So if you haven't seen that, you should definitely check it out. They were nice. Some spicy things in there. Magnus Nihal. Magnus chose to play Nihal. I made a video about this, and it was kind of a funny reaction that Nihal had, because he was like, here we go again. And it's a 10-minute game. We have Magnus kicking us off here. We have a Najdorf Sicilian from Nihal. Obviously, very, very good opening. And now h3. So h3 could be used to play g4. It also could be used to maybe bait an e-pawn to come forward. But h6 is actually the move that Nihal chooses to mirror Magnus, who doesn't play at all g4 and instead plays bishop d3, which is also a very good move. And now we have a 6th rank play here from Nihal, a6, d6, e6, h6, etc. a4. So a nice little move that controls the b5 square, so black can't actually ever put a pawn there. And Nihal continues to play along the 6th rank, so he's going to be setting up his pieces on b7, on d7, etc. We have a 4 here. Knight bd7, queen e2. Magnus just playing a move very flexible with potential ideas of maybe pushing in the middle, getting this bishop out at a later moment. Just a good square for the queen, and also just eyeing over here potentially as well. Queen c7, another flexible move. Castles, bishop here, and bishop d2. All the pieces have been developed, and I think maybe even castles. This is like, you cannot ask for more principled students, and good play. Very nice play here. And this is just a super high level move for Magnus. I mean, it's a funny position, because like you very rarely see that you can just play a move like b4 and it doesn't have a repercussion. It can't be taken, it can't be undermined. But the idea is very simple. You just stop knight c5. There is no knight coming to c5. It's not going to target the bishop on d3, etc. Black can't play a5 because b5 would be really weakened. So since you can't do that, your position is always going to be a little bit problematic for the remainder of the game. So rook d8. And I mean, will Magnus be able to do what he does to everybody, right? Is he going to be able to completely outmaneuver you from this point forward, right? Bishop back to f8, queen to f2, slow maneuvering chess. At a certain point, maybe you're going to make a break for it, e5, f5. Right, queen g3, preparing some attack. And this was maybe the moment that Nihal actually had to go for d5. And if Magnus had gone for e5, this looks kind of crazy. You go knight e4, and even though at the end of this very long sequence, if you just calculate everything, you know, yeah, you just lose a pawn here in this position. But after something like queen c4, it's very difficult for Magnus to make any further moves. And actually, you don't even have to take on e4. You can play knight takes e5 and hit this knight on d4 like this. So there is this moment here for Nihal to play d5, but almost like frozen by the Magnus effect. And Magnus then gets this amazing, typical attacking idea, just f5 and then jumping in, sacrifices his knight, and the black position is just falling apart. h6, f6, you're going to take the pawn, you're going to take with the pawn on d7 as well. Queen back to g3, open up these diagonals. 3-minute time advantage. I mean, just an amazing and clean game that ends up with him up a pawn. And this is a disaster. I mean, this really is just terrible. I mean, queen c8, queen e8, just... This is Magnus absolutely at his best. The black bishop can't do anything. You really cannot ask for a better game of chess to kick us off. You just can't. Like, there is nothing I can say or do. Nihal almost was beaten mentally before it even kind of started. Like there was one moment there he could have maybe created a bit of counterplay, but there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And now he's gonna have to win a game with the white pieces. And you know, he plays his typical London. Magnus commits to g6, so he plays the King's Indian defense. And Nihal goes for the Jobava with knight to b5, very interesting, knight a6. And now this is typical Nihal chess, like d4 sidelines, playing some sort of queen's pawn game. Maybe he's going to bring his knight back, trade somehow. But Magnus is going to play with the c pawn. Maybe he's going to attack in the middle. He's going to bring his knight back, and it's going to be a slow process. I mean, the thing is, guys like Nihal who play positional chess, they are met with quite literally the final boss of positional chess, and that makes things very difficult. So c6. Knight back to c7, and now let's see how Nihal begins improving his position. Instead of playing a slow game, he attacks Magnus, who's like, all right, do your worst. But now the bishop kind of is in an uncomfortable spot. Magnus chops on d4, and you take with the e-pawn. And he takes, but he might have even considered moving the bishop to the h6 square, and then going down this way, right? c1, d2, e3, f4, g3, right? The f4 square is covered. So, takes, f6. I really like this repositioning. Knight back to g7. He just gets attacked. He locks the position up. Knight to c2, knight f5. Attacks the knight, and the knight goes over to h4. Now, we're going to have a funny little convention of horses here in the middle of the board. Queen d6, queen b3. Rook h3 is crazy, but at some point, Nihal is going to try to kick out Magnus's knight. And it's going to backfire in spectacular fashion as the knight is standing on the g3 square. Oops. And you can't actually take this knight because of the pin. So these horses are standing around guarding the palace that the king is living in, but it's not particularly effective defense. Now this game's going to get crazy because Nihal is not going to stand around and be bullied. He's going to take the knight, and then he's going to take the other knight. He sacrifices the rook for the two knights. Pawn goes down to h3. 2 squares away from promotion. Very weird position here. Like, how is Nihal going to defend himself? He goes king to d2, and he's going to move his bishop next. Now Magnus moves the king to h8, and he's going to bring this down this way to g1, g2, g3, etc. Bishop to e2. Rook slides over. Rook into g3. So everything is solid. All right. Queen to a3 is a threat of a queen trade, but here, white needed to preserve his queen. He needed to play knight to c5 and put some pressure. Queen a3 going for the queen trade is like respecting the counterplay of the opponent, maybe like thinking, okay, any endgame for me is going to be good because we're not going to have any queens on the board. Without any queens on the board, Magnus can't really do anything. He goes queen a3, but he didn't have to go queen a3. Of course, it's a you know, you make decisions in chess. And now Magnus is playing defense, and Nihal is gonna continue with his knights. He's gonna dance around with his knights, but this rook infiltration here, sacrificing the material, 2 knights and a bishop against 2 rooks, very weird, imbalanced game. But these rooks are too strong. These rooks are too strong, and now you have to move the bishop somewhere, or you have to come back with the knight. I think f5 here was a crazy winning idea. And the point is that after f5, you're going to lose this pawn. But then you give this check, king goes to c4, and you play rook f3. And these pieces can't, none of them can defend each other. But none of that really matters because Magnus ultimately repositions everything, and the pawn just walks down the board. Nihal down a minute on the clock. And Magnus took care of business early in the day, defeating Nihal Sarin very convincingly, 2.5 to half. It was a best of 4. So he qualifies first, all right? Now, Hikaru versus Arjun Erigaisi. They drew 4 rapid games. 4 rapid games. Okay? Then they have to play Armageddon. In Armageddon, you bid for black, because if you play black and you draw, you win, but you start with less time. Arjun wanted 6:45 on the clock. So Hikaru played an exchange, Queen's Gambit declined, and went for a sideline, and Arjun has 3 minutes to make up time. He's going to have to overcome a massive time disadvantage in trying to beat Hikaru. So we have h4, and Hikaru's going to try to put out the fire that is Erigaisi. So Erigaisi here goes for something funny. He takes this pawn. I have a feeling he realized it wasn't the best move, but this was not the best way to meet it, and neither was this. It was kind of hilarious. Here, white needs to play knight to h5, and then play f3, and there's some positions you play like g4. I mean, maybe you can figure that out over the board. Hikaru attacked this, and now the best move for black is not even to defend this, it's to play g5, which is incredible. So rook takes h4, g takes h4, knight to h5, like just complete chaos, you know? And takes, instead is what we get, but this position is very pleasant for white because white has the bishop pair and it's not easy for black to play. It's still nearly a 3-minute time advantage, all right? So the bishop comes out to d3, a5, nice solid move, bishop into d6, knight drops back, and long castle. Long castle is an amazing 40 seconds spent on this. Arjun Erigaisi early on has equalized the game, and he's looking for a simple solution out of this one because, again, he has draw odds. Long castle here for black would have also been good. Queen drops back to g3, g6, very messy position. Will Arjun leave the king in the middle? Is he going to go right? Is he going to go left? He ends up going nowhere. I mean, technically he goes right, but he's going to move his king to g7. Hikaru maintains a 2.5-minute edge on time, and at some point it's going to really come back to hurt. Knight to g5, the king walks over to g7, rook pressure, queen f6 was wrong. You needed to play really ugly, stubborn defense here with black, which is kind of understandable when you look at the position, but it's not an easy move to play. Arjun tries to solve his problems in a dynamic way. Queen c7 was not even the best. I think here you could have played rook e4, rook f4, but infiltrating is natural. Rook d8. Bishop c4 attacks the pawn, and everything in black's position ultimately is weak. This is weak, this is weak, this is weak, this is weak. Queen takes d4, but this is a losing position. And Arjun, overwhelmed by the time trouble, ends up having to lose his rook, and now it's child's play. I mean, Hikaru, 2-minute time advantage. This is easy for him. Brings the queen around, rook e5, queen d3. I think here there was like a very close moment after b5, rook a6, but Arjun just doesn't have the time. I mean, 50 seconds, and this is just losing. Nice plan here by Hikaru. They both promote, but only one of them is getting mated. And Hikaru beat Arjun Erigaisi. So Hikaru drew 4 games in rapid, but knocks out Arjun. Arjun eliminated once again. Last year he was eliminated, I think, in the semifinal. This time in the quarterfinal. I mean, Magnus and Hikaru here to stay. The only ones from the old guard holding it down. All right, we didn't have Fabi here. Nepo was knocked out. Duda was knocked out. All these guys were knocked out. And then there's a matchup of the young guys. Alireza, Firouzja, Hans Niemann. These two were paired together because Nordjebek actually chose to play Lazavik. Nordjebek could have chosen to play Hans Niemann, and then Denis would have had to play Alireza. And actually, after when they asked Denis what his thoughts of his opponent were, Nordjebek, he said, "I'm just happy I don't have to play Alireza." Wow. That's respect, right? So this is not an Armageddon. This is just a rapid game. It's a very interesting matchup. I mean, I gave the favorite to Alireza because to me, he's probably, at any given day, the second best player in the world. But we have rook b1. We have this kind of system chosen by Hans Niemann. Bishop d6, the trade. He goes bishop g5 to target the knight. Hans goes knight bd7. And now b4, which is not the best move apparently, but you could also go c4. Then he plays c4. And in rapid, I think honestly, like anything goes. You play moves like knight to d4. You try to go for knight b5. Hans stops it, which looks extremely natural. Except apparently the best move was just to allow it, to just allow a short castle knight b5, which is obviously super weird. Pawn takes. Alireza opens up the c file, and now is going to have sustained pressure in this game. It's a symmetrical pawn structure, but it's obviously full of complications. We have a horse convention in the middle of the board with the 4 knights. I mean, like, when have you ever seen something like this? When Alireza Firouzja plays chess, just complete nonsense on the board. I mean, really, the nonsense is like Erigaisi. Alireza is definitely a different breed. And then Hans plays f5, tries to take over the initiative of the game here. We have takes. All right, knight c3, knight back to d2, and bishop b7. Castles, rook d8, normal game. Everything is just developing in a very chill way. All right, boys are preparing for a long-term fight. Hans launches counterplay, f5, g5, clearly looking for some stuff here. Retreats, and now bishop back to a8. Everything was going well. Hans retreated. Queen b2 appeared on the board, so the queens are going to face each other. Pawn to e5 here is the move. You kick out the knight, then the game proceeds. He thought for 1:56 seconds. He played bishop a8, and that blunders that pawn because the queen cannot defend as it's pinned, and this queen is protected. Knight takes e6, and Hans Niemann resigned because he's forked. He's going to lose a rook for a knight and a pawn. And folks, can you believe it when I tell you that is how Hans Niemann's path ended in this year's Esports World Cup? Can you believe that? Brutal. Absolutely brutal. And contrary to popular belief, some of you morons out there think that, like, I ever root for people to lose, even, if I gave it, Hans had an interview with me a long time ago, and somehow I root against him when I was by far the person that covered him the most, and tried to cover him in the most neutral, fair fashion as best that I could, and reported on his struggles to get into tournaments and whatever. But it's, I get it. You make enough content, enough time, you get big enough, and there's obviously going to be differing opinions. But this sucks. I mean, I yesterday in the broadcast, I said Hans Niemann is a top 10 player in the world when you consider all the formats. For it to end like this, brutal. What an unforgiving format. And this was the only game that he lost. They made 3 draws, but Hans was eliminated. And Alireza is another person into the semifinals. And Denis Lazavik took down Nojibek Abdusatorov in an Armageddon, which set up a rematch of the last time that Magnus and Firouzja met in the finals. Magnus and Firouzja have now met in the finals of 2 Speed Chess Championships back-to-back and the last Esports World Cup. So these guys have played in 1-1, 3-1, 5-1, and 10+0. And this year, Alireza, I think, beat him in classical chess. But to be honest, everybody beat Magnus in classical chess this year everybody beat him in classical chess in Norway chess. That is what happened, right? And that was a crazy tournament to cover. So these guys draw their 2 games. We go to a semifinal, and we have e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop e5 check. Knight goes to d7, c4, a6 back, like this, and Alireza mutually locks up the center of the board. And then right around here, he forced the trade of knights. Right here, I was commentating at this moment with Tanya, shout out. And Magnus now transforms the game in a way where he trades the bishop for the knight for the bishop, and doubles the pawns. And this is awful to play against Magnus because he's going to infiltrate along the b file. He's going to target c and e pawns here. This is just going to be miserable. And that's exactly what he's going to do. Now, of course, he has a lot of respect for Alireza Firouzja. And Alireza has a good ability to imbalance games, right? That might not necessarily get imbalanced so easily, but he kind of has a way to to do it. He does it all the time, and we see him complicate things and throw things off every now and then. Now, in this particular game, Magnus begins invading on the queen side like this, and he makes a ton of progress. All right, a4. Might have to plug my computer in. Where's the charger? I'm gonna plug my computer in. That'd be really sad if it disconnected. Am I even sitting near an outlet? I am. But whatever. Actually, not whatever. Let's check the battery. I'm gonna plug it in. I'll plug it in. This is what you guys get. Gotham recaps, plugging in a laptop in the middle of the recording. I got a new laptop recently with a much better battery life, so I've been like letting it run, but at some point I probably should have protected the battery a little bit better. Anyway, most people would have edited this out, but that would be stupid. So I'm not going to do that. You guys get the raw recording here. That's why you love me. Or you don't. I don't know. Maybe you're hate watching. Magnus said he hate watched Hikaru streams back in the day, which is the lie detector stuff. I think that stuff is pseudoscience, but he was saying some funny stuff. Anyway, in this position right here, I could not for the life of me understand why Magnus did not go rook to b6. I mean, clearly he saw something. Maybe he saw some sort of counterplay that could happen. He ended up backing up here, so he didn't commit to going forward. He played like this. But I want to draw your attention to something right here. So Alireza Firouzja in this position has 1 minute and 15 seconds against 411. And the only time that Alireza lost to Magnus in dominant fashion was at the Esports World Cup last year when he got into time trouble a lot. In this format, you cannot play slow. It's just not possible. And you cannot out-scramble Magnus when you don't have a lot of time. You're not going to be able to do it. And right here was the last moment. He could have maybe taken and then jumped into the knight on d4, but he didn't do that. He went here. But then Alireza Firouzja, with 47 seconds on the clock, takes over the game. 37 seconds on the clock. Alireza Firouzja is winning against Magnus Carlsen. 21 seconds remaining. This man is -4 if he goes bishop to e8. There is no way to defend the position after bishop takes a4. Now, when you have 19 seconds here, your heart is pounding. His heart rate was like 140. How does he do this? How does this man manage to pull this off? But this constantly throws Magnus a little bit off balance when this type of stuff happens. And again, Magnus has been sick the whole week. And we get queen to e3 check. But guys, it's a weird recap. It just sounded like somebody was boiling water. Like, I just heard, like, random noises in the hotel room. I mean, I don't know what's going on in this recap, but if you're still here, you're awesome. Let me know if you're still watching after 22 minutes. They're just listening to, like, sounds like somebody's boiling water. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, somehow he gets a completely winning position. They repeat moves, and then Magnus is like, you know what? I'm not going to repeat moves. Now, repeating moves would have been the best. Because now bishop f7 just threatens to take this pawn on c4 in a lot of different positions and win. Bishop f7 is winning, but it's very tough to understand why. There are all sorts of... For example, queen d7, this is completely disgusting. There's bishop e6. And if you take, there's queen d3. Oh, and then, sorry, if you take, there's not queen d3, there's rook d1. What am I talking about? But if you don't take, like if you just kind of move around, I can take on c4, rook c4, queen b3, attacking this, and that is how I'm going to win. Alireza ultimately did not find that, and he didn't find that. Magnus consolidated his position, and then, well, what do you think happened? Of course, Magnus isn't going to give him another opportunity. Alireza just simply gets too low on time, and Magnus wins. And Magnus wins. That's what happened. So you get the next game. Alireza Firouzja with the white pieces. He's going to start handling his clock a little bit better. We go for an Italian. He tries to bait Magnus into a fighting game. Magnus just keeping it super solid, playing chill, taking the outpost square. Alireza here does a very nice reroute, and right around here has the best time situation he's had in quite some time. Magnus is down like a minute on the clock, and the position isn't looking like anything dangerous, but it's not looking particularly great compared to some of the previous ones. Alireza does not necessarily choose the right way forward, but he's going to get a chance a little bit later, as in all of these complications, right here, Magnus goes here and relies on a tactic. He relies on this, rook d7. If you take, there is knight to e2 check, but that's actually better for white, in retrospect. Alireza spots this and is like, I'm not going for it. And he goes here. This was his moment. This was the best moment he had. I mean, winning a game in a crazy time scramble is not necessarily a moment, but he needed to calculate rook d7, knight e2, king f1, knight c3, rook f7, here, take, and he probably saw that he was going to lose both pawns, But what's completely insane is if he goes b3, he's just straight up winning the game because neither of these knights can win any of those pawns. And if you play c6, I go knight d6, and if you try to run away, I'm going to go here and I'm going to eat your pawns. Alireza was winning. He just straight up needed to play rook takes rook. Can you believe it? I mean, of course, he saw the whole sequence. He obviously calculated rook takes knight e2 king moves, and then he saw that whole line and was like, well, at the end of it, you know, my b2 and a4 pawns are weak. There you go. He doesn't go for it, and ultimately, even though this position was very complicated, again, look at the time, 20 seconds, Magnus Carlsen. He just gets it done. Endgame. He's going to promote his 2 pawns. This is almost a total replay of the last one. Like, just straight up. The last time that these two met, they met in Riyadh. They played in the final, and this was the same thing. It started early. I think Magnus won a game early on. Maybe Alireza won a game there, but I don't actually think so. And then Magnus just, he stabilized, but I actually don't think it happened. And again, it's best of 6 at this format. And Magnus actually... you know, now he just has to not lose this game. He just has to make a draw, and he was doing a very good job for a while. Still, Alireza got a very attacking game. And would you believe it? Look at this. Alireza gets a belligerent attack. He sacrifices material in front of the king, backs up, Magnus trying to hold it together. But again, Alireza, 325 to 406, probably just thought he was lost. Just thought, practically speaking, it's losing. Rook here, and Magnus gives him some chances. Rook takes f2. But you cannot play 3:51 to 41 seconds on the clock. It's just not possible. And the crazy thing is, a couple of moves later, Magnus went here, and he's actually just in a much worse position if you sacrifice the pawn on g6. But it's so difficult. He has to calculate knight gf6, queen here, rook g8. You have to have the intuition to pick up on this, and you have 25 seconds to do it. When you have this little time, you are making moves in your head basically before your opponent can even play anything. And so Alireza was like, well, my pawn's hanging, I'm going to defend it. But, right, he needed to go. And I mean, this is not really a practical chance. The best chance that he had maybe was in that game where he had to play rook takes rook. Folks, I mean, I am a fan of Magnus Carlsen. I think most of us are. But, yeah, I would have loved a closer match. He wins 3 games. He wins games 3, 4, and 5. He doesn't need a 6th game. He qualifies to the finals by knocking out Nihal Sarin and by knocking out Alireza Firouzja, and he will await the winner of Hikaru Nakamura and Denis Lazavik. Now, this is an interesting match because they met in London 6 months ago, and they played 1+1, 3+1, and 5+1. That was a 3rd place match. You could argue that maybe Hikaru wasn't as motivated. He was very motivated in the Speed Chess Championship before that when he had to play Hans Niemann. He did not want to lose to Hans Niemann. Denis Lazavik is a brutal pairing. This man does not take any risks in his games. He is a good positional player with very solid understanding. Honestly, he reminds me of like a modern-day Anatoly Karpov. Now, that for now is a little bit of a slight on Karpov, given everything that he accomplished. And Denis Lazavik would never want to be compared to him because he's 19 years old. But he has that style. Like, he's just an effective mechanic of a player. He's like a technician, you know, like with the goggles, and he's like, you know, doing stuff with the flames and welding things together. He's not like a Tal, he's not flashy, he's not crazy, he's got a very chill personality. But in this game against Hikaru was content with getting these offbeat kind of like English positions. They maneuvered here, and just watch as the quality of the maneuvers, like you think nothing's happening. Like these guys are just like making moves left, right, moving the pieces around. Denis Lazavik managed to create a completely optimized position while the two of them left the center completely intact. If you trade the h-file opens and there's attacking possibilities with takes, and g4, this bishop is better than this bishop. And Lazavik breaks through with, look at this bishop, by the way. During the commentary, I called this a tapeworm. Like, you just live in the opponent's situation over here. They can't get you out. And then Lazavik goes take, and queen a7. And I'm going to say it right now. There is no way to protect this pawn. But if Hikaru was more of a Gotham fan, tuned into some more content, his eyes might have been drawn to rook takes f6. I am only saying that because I have seen the move with Stockfish. I don't actually think I would have played this myself in a game. What do you mean, I think? I would have never played the move rook takes f6 in a game. It's just such an outlandish move, but this rook b6, this rook f6 is so ridiculous. You do this, and then you can defend this pawn by going queen b2. This is no longer possible because of knight to d5. If the king runs back, which is obviously the best move, you play d5. Look at this. And you create some attacking possibilities. This is sick. This is really, really sick. I mean, it's amazing, but it's not very human. Denis Lazavik picks up the pawn and just never gives a chance. I mean, Hikaru down on time against the young phenom from Belarus. Takes, just pushes, king walks in. Hikaru cannot come closer because of this fork. He can't push his b pawn because he's going to get taken. Folks, it takes some 60 moves in this game, but Denis Lazavik puts on just a clinic. Like, there's no other way to describe this. He is never down on time at any point in this game. Complete and total positional. Like, how this is amazing. You know, he beat Hikaru by 1 game in their Speedchess Championship match, and Hikaru was winning the last game. He could have tied that game, and then it would have went to overtime. And the way that this match ended, this was Hikaru's last game with the white pieces. And again, he went for an English. It was a very offbeat game. Denis had a great position, and it was equal, but he had a very nice position. And after some more trading, you know, we got like a bishop versus knight. We're heading for a draw. It's a weakened pawn structure, right? You just think this is a draw, you know, rook endgame easy. 3-4, black has very damaged pawn structure. But Denis is just so precise. Like, instead of rook a4, Hikaru had to play rook a6 to target the pawn. This was the more accurate move. Much more accurate, because if rook c5, there's rook takes f6, and then, you know, at least you get back. Hikaru goes here, 1 inaccuracy. The rook goes to the c file. Then he sacrifices his f-pawn like this. Look at this. Sacrifices f-pawn. And Hikaru's giving checks. He's actually defending very well. But now he has to play the only move, which is king d4, h4, king d5. I mean, and that's equal. I guess? I don't know. I mean, this is the only move, king d4. Practically speaking, this looks lost, because it is. The pawn is just going. There's nothing Hikaru can do. The rook is cutting off the king. You can't get any closer or do anything. This pawn is going to promote. And Denis Lazavik knocks out Hikaru Nakamura for the 2nd time this year. 2nd time. He beat him in the... they didn't knock him out. I mean, he got 3rd place in Paris. And he wins this one. I mean, this kid is incredible. He's so strong. And we're going to see it's Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus Carlsen, that was a Freudian slip. That would have been sick, right? Another one. But Magnus Carlsen, Denis Lazavik for 1st place. But these 4 guys, Magnus, Denis, Hikaru, Alireza, same Final Four as Speedchess Championship. Clearly right now the best 4 players in the world, the most clutch players in the world, made it back to another major final. This time Denis is going to look to right the wrong of Paris London earlier this year. I can't say it. I'm exhausted. I've been talking for like 7-8 straight hours or something. Anyway, and Hikaru will play Alireza for the 3rd place spot. Yeah, contrary to what some may say, old Gotham here, he doesn't make these recaps to talk about which players are bad. I respect all players. These guys are much better players than I could ever be, even if I lived many, many more years and dedicated much more time to chess. So whether players win or lose, I cheer for everybody. I cheer a lot for Hikaru, to the point that, you know, you guys hate on me for it. For Magnus, to the point that, well, it's kind of an internet meme. And I'm excited to see what Denis Lazavik accomplishes in the finals. And hopefully he puts up a real good fight. Problem is that Magnus is just a better style than his, and much more experienced. That is all I have for you today. See you for the final recap. Get out of here.